Welcome back into Pigskin Perspectives. It is time to review the football week that was. I won't say it was the best of weekends, but it certainly wasn't the worst. There were still some decent games out there, some good games, and then there were some bad games. As always, it seems like that's the breakdown. Really did feel like last week was more of the excitement week. This is kind of more of the letdown week, but I mean, we take that in football. I mean, we are, I think, officially halfway through the NFL season. We are more than halfway done with the college football season, and that's just hard to believe. I mean, it goes by so fast. It by the time you may be watching it, it already may be November. This is being filmed on Halloween night. That end of the season's approaching fast. People gotta make moves now. Obviously, NFL trade deadline was today. We'll mention some of the major trades when we get to NFL, but we'll start out, as we always do, recapping the six-pack that I gave you on Thursday. I'm going to be honest. 5 of these 6 games weren't that good. That is on me. I am deeply sorry for misleading you. A lot of these games ended up being blowouts and just weren't good. So let's get to those. We'll start out with the team I'm wearing, the Oregon Ducks. They went into Rice-Eccles Stadium, a stadium where Utah has not lost in 19 games or a similar number like that. They get absolutely blown out, dominated start to finish by Bo Nix and the Oregon defense. It was a final score of 35-6. I mean, Utah was held without a touchdown. Those 6 points came from 2 field goals. It was an outstanding performance from Oregon. They're really starting to turn the corner, I believe. I think they were already close, but they're now making that turn as we get into November, looking like that team that can make a deep run in December and January. And it's going to be interesting to watch how Dan Lanning plays, because they still do have important games coming up. USC is 2 weeks from now. They play Cal this week. It's USC. Then I believe they go out to Tempe and play Arizona State. And then they come back to Eugene to play Oregon State on Senior Day. That will be Black Friday. It's going to be an interesting run. I think this is going to either make them title contenders or make them Holiday Bowl champions. Obviously, they won the Holiday Bowl last year. Probably wouldn't go back there this year, but it's all going to depend on how this defense plays. I think they're really good. I think that they can get this done. The rest of their schedule isn't the hardest in the world. It's just it has potential for a lot of traps. Utah, I don't even know what happened. I mean, coming off that USC game, I was expecting a little bit of a letdown, but I expected them to keep this game close because it was at home. They didn't do that. In the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, not officially called that anymore, but it still remains with a lot of the fan base. Georgia beat Florida 43-20, and this game kind of closer, or the score indicates that it was closer than it actually was. Georgia controlled this game from start to finish. I really questioned how they would play, without Brock Bowers, if that would be a big factor. It wasn't. Georgia just completely dominated start to finish. Moving down, Louisville shut out Duke 23-0. Again, this was a Louisville control the game from start to finish. Like I said, these games were not that good this weekend that I picked, and that is on me. I'm sorry I did not see Cal and USC putting up 99 total points in a 50-49 battle. If I would have known that would have been on here, but and it was on the Pac-12 network, and nobody has the Pac-12 network, so why would I do that? Still, I know I did that earlier in the year, but still. Uh, One of the closer games on here, it was Ohio State traveling to Camp Randall. They win 24-10. This game seems closer than what the score indicates. Ohio State got a few later touchdowns in the second half. They're more of a second half team anyways. First half, they really struggled, and I was quite surprised by that. I just didn't expect that from them against a Wisconsin team that's not outstanding, but they're not awful. I didn't expect that coming from them, but Ohio State controls their own destiny, I guess I would say. We'll get to them again in a minute as we get to the official college football playoff rankings that were just unveiled mere hours ago now. We will get all the reactions to that. UCLA, a 28-16 victory against Colorado at the Rose Bowl. Of course, Deion makes it not about the game and about how all the players' jewelry got stolen in the locker room after the game, which I completely understand. That's a big problem. But also, like, this team is kind of unraveling, and we're just kind of deflecting that, I guess. I don't know why, but we are. It just kind of seems like things aren't going as well as they were in September, if we just put it that way. And yeah. And then finally, the only close game, the actual really only close game on here is Oregon State traveled down to Tucson to face off against Arizona. They walked out as losers as they lost to the Wildcats 27-24. What a wild game. Oregon State loses by 3. You go back and look. There was a play at the end of the first half where they ran a fake field goal. It wasn't a pass. It was a run by the holder, and he got like 20 yards, but was still 10 yards away from the end zone. Imagine if you just got the full 3 points there. Maybe a different game. Maybe you're ranked in the top 10 today. Just saying. A game that didn't make it on here, but was a major stunner this weekend. Kansas defeats Oklahoma at in Kansas. What a game that was. It was a back and forth battle. Really enjoyed that. Kansas gets their first win against Oklahoma in 18 games, I think. I think it went back to 1997 the last time they beat Oklahoma. So a huge win for Kansas that obviously put them in the top 25 this week. And speaking of top 25s, let's take a look at what the College Football Playoff Committee has revealed to us mere hours ago. Here are the rankings for the October 31st edition. I guess we'll start at the top because that's how this graphic is, even though the show starts at the bottom. That's more for TV build, obviously. But at number 1, it is not a team coming from Athens, Georgia. It is instead a team from Columbus, Ohio. It is the Ohio State Buckeyes. I don't think Ohio State has played like a number 1 team this year, but they have the wins of a number 1 team, and I think that's what matters here. They've beaten, we'll look down really quick, they've beaten number 11 Penn State, they've beaten number 15 Notre Dame. One of them was on the road, that was the number 15 Notre Dame. Penn State was at home. Georgia, Michigan, and to an extent Florida State don't have that. Georgia, their best win right now, is it Florida? I really don't know. Because the only other SEC East team on here is Tennessee and Missouri. They face Missouri this weekend, and Tennessee later down the road, I believe. Georgia doesn't have those. Michigan, is their best win a 6-2 Rutgers team? I mean, really? And Florida State, they do have the win against LSU, which I give them credit for. LSU is a good team. But Ohio State having a win against a team that's number 11 and 15, I think propelled them to this number 1 ranking. Number 2 is Georgia. Number 3 is Michigan. And number 4 is Florida State. 5 and 6, so the first two teams out are Washington and Oregon. Obviously, these two have already played, with Washington getting that upper hand in that game off a missed field goal in the last second, and Dan Lanning going for it inexplicably on fourth down 3 times and passing all 3 times and missing all 3 times. That puts them at 6, and as we go down, 7 is Texas, 8 is Alabama, 9 is Oklahoma, and 10 is Ole Miss. I honestly agree with the top 10 here. I think the committee got it right. It's very rare, I feel like I say that the committee got it right, because they usually do something insane. But it does really feel like here they got it right. The only thing maybe is dropping Oklahoma maybe a few more spots because of that loss to Kansas. And Kansas is a good team, but I feel like they should be out of the top 10. Who do you put in the top 10 for them? I honestly have no idea, because maybe Penn State, but as we get lower than 11, I mean, some of these teams, I really don't know. So at 11 is Penn State, 12 is Missouri, 13 is Louisville, 14 LSU, 15 Notre Dame, 16 Oregon State, 17 Tennessee, 18 Utah, 19 UCLA, 20 USC, 21 Kansas, 22 Oklahoma State, 23 Kansas State, 24 Tulane, and 25 Air Force. So the Missouri and Louisville kind of feel like they're a little overrated here. I think they should be in that. I know both of them only have 1 loss, but I kind of feel like they should be around the 15-16 range. But then this brings up the whole argument again, well, who moves up to 12 and 13? LSU and Notre Dame, I believe, both have 2 losses. I don't think you put either of them above a 1-loss team right now, because I honestly don't know if either of them are that good. So I guess the committee's right here. It feels really weird seeing those 2 there, because I really don't think they deserve to be there. Obviously, Missouri has a very tough test this weekend against Georgia. I mean, if they can win that, they're in the driver's seat to win the SEC East, and things get a lot more interesting from there, because that definitely propels them into the top 8, maybe. It's very interesting what they would do there. I think USC is a little too high here. I mean, they've looked awful, honestly, the past few weeks. They kind of escaped with a win this week. They more than likely should have lost to Cal. They obviously don't. Kansas, after the win against Oklahoma, I think that they should be the next highest ranked Big 12 team after Oklahoma and Texas, obviously. Oklahoma State, I don't believe deserve to be in here. They still lost 33-7 to South Alabama, which I believe, should still be something held against them, but it doesn't seem like the committee is truly doing that. And then Tulane and Air Force. Tulane lost Ole Miss earlier this year. Air Force is undefeated. If anything, those 2 should be swapped, but I think the biggest grievance here is not having James Madison ranked, which you won't see them ranked, but James Madison is the best group of 5 team in FBS right now, and because of stupid rules, they can't play in their bowl game because of the transition period, which is absolutely insane, and is just should be abolished, but nobody's going to do anything about it, because why would they fix something that's actually wrong with the sport? I'm not surprised. So given that is the college football rankings that were just unveiled, like I said. I think the committee mostly got it right. There's a few things you can change here or there. But honestly, the only thing people care about are the top 4 and then maybe the top 6 for the first 2 out. I think the committee got it pretty straight on there. I can make an argument that Washington should be at 6 and Oregon 5, but obviously the head-to-head is there, and I'm not going to argue with it. So given that, we'll now move on to the NFL. We'll take a look here. We had some ugly games here, honestly. One of them was that Thursday night game. The Bills kind of sneak away with a 24-18 victory. Felt like neither team really wanted this one. Bills walk away with the victory. I don't think either team is that good. And that's saying something about the Bills because the Bills should be really good and they're not. The Dallas Cowboys pulled out to like a 33-6 lead in the second quarter. They cruised to victory 43-20. That was a performance I was not expecting at all from the Cowboys. It was that was one of the performances of all time. Matthew Stafford went down with injury in the second half with a UCL injury or thumb injury, one of the two, maybe both. I feel like I've heard both in the past 2 days, so sounds like he'll be fine for this weekend. But with their bye coming up the week after, I wouldn't be surprised if he sits, honestly. Just have him rested. The Vikings went into Lambeau. They got a 24-10 victory. But they lose Kirk Cousins, torn Achilles, most likely out the rest of the season. I say most likely because Aaron Rodgers seems to be coming back this year, but also we're midway through the season. Aaron Rodgers probably won't be back until week 16 or something like that. Who knows? I honestly don't know. I can't believe that he actually might play. I feel like that might be a problem, but I don't know. But there needs to be a real discussion on this Packers team being bad. They just looked awful. Nobody could catch anything. Jordan Love really couldn't throw great. The defense looked scatterbrained. And this team just looks awful. I don't know if the move now is to keep playing like this to get a higher draft pick next year and get a pick of one of the better quarterbacks. Are you going to stick with Jordan Love? Because I don't know if you can right now. I really don't know where this Packers team goes, honestly. They look awful. The Atlanta Falcons, they go into Tennessee to face off against the Titans, even though they were dressed up as the Houston Oilers, an early Christmas present for the eyes. But it was Will Levis in his first career start, defeating the Falcons 28-23. Desmond Ridder of the Falcons gets benched at halftime. They keep saying it was for injury reasons. I don't believe it, but it might have been. Who knows? But it was Will Levis that comes out on top in those beautiful Houston Oilers uniforms, even though I get that the team is still owned by the owners of what was the Oilers, the Adams family that moved them to Tennessee. I get that's still the team's history, but this kind of feels like a Browns situation where the uniform kind of should have stayed in the city and the team moves on and acts like an expansion team, kind of. But I don't know. The Saints went into Indianapolis, got a 38-27 victory against the Colts. The Colts kind of look a bit in free fall right now, and I'm not really surprised, to be honest. I don't think they're that great of a team. I kept hyping them up because I expected them to be better. I just don't think they are. The Dolphins, wearing their throwback uniforms, they get a victory over the Patriots 31-17. It was a Tua-type day for the Dolphins. The Battle of New York, even though it was in New Jersey, the New York Jets get a 13-10 victory over the New York Giants in overtime. What a punt fest this was. It felt like there was a punt every 2 seconds. Very enjoyable for the eyes if you like punts. If you hate punting and you hate not high-scoring games, This was not the game for you. It was kind of awful. The Jaguars go into Pittsburgh, and with all of Pittsburgh's black magic that they tried to pull out a win, they just couldn't. It was the Jaguars walking away with a 20-10 victory. The Steelers lose Kenny Pickett. He goes down with a shoulder injury. It will be interesting to see if he plays on Thursday. If not, it's Mitchell Trubisky, which is always a choice. The Eagles traveled to FedEx Field. They beat the Commanders 38-31. The Commanders kind of seemed in control of this game for a while. Then that Eagles team just kept coming back, and it eventually ended up being too much for the Commanders, and the Eagles walk away with the victory. The Commanders, the big talk of trade deadline day, as they trade away both Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Montez Sweat gets traded to the Bears for a second-round pick. Chase Young gets traded to the 49ers for a third-round pick. I really don't get the Bears trade from the Bears' perspective. I don't know why you're trading for somebody on an expiring contract that most likely won't re-sign for you because you're not good. For the 49ers, I kind of feel like it's a bit of overkill. If Chase Young can get back to his early form where he was just that outstanding player, worthy of that number 2 overall pick, the 49ers defense is going to be insane. Now, of course, that's a big if he can get back to that, but still, it kind of feels like overkill if we're being honest here. It really does. Those were the 2 big moves of the day. We'll get to another one in a minute here. But the Carolina Panthers get their first victory of the season. They defeat the Houston Texans 15-13 on a last-second field goal to get them the victory. Bryce Young gets the advantage over the second overall pick in this draft, C.J. Stroud. So that little battle has its first fight, even though it will only happen once every 4 years. But hey, the Seahawks wearing their throwback uniforms. It felt like a throwback weekend in the NFL. They faced off against the Browns. Kevin Stefanski calls dumb play call, ends up in a turnover. Seahawks go down the field, win the game. I don't know. This Browns team, it's annoying to watch. But the Seahawks, they have to change back to these full time, honestly. These things are just absolutely beautiful to look at. These uniforms. It needs to be full time. It's time to give up the dark blue and lime green and gray. It's time. It's time to go. It's time to bring back this uniform full time. This thing was absolutely beautiful to watch for 60 football minutes. Even though the Browns lost, they lost to a team that has a lot of style. The Chiefs traveled to Denver to face off against the Broncos, and it was the Broncos dominating this game from start to finish. They get a 24-9 victory. I was kind of surprised by this result. I know these 2 teams just played a few weeks ago, so I kind of expected Denver to keep it closer than expected. I didn't expect them to come out with the win, but they do, and it's a good win on their schedule. The Ravens, they were ahead for, I think, the whole game, but the Cardinals kept sneaking back, but it was the Ravens that come out with the 31-24 victory. The game in San Francisco, which was the game of the week, the Bengals are, I think, for sure back. They looked dominating in their win against the 49ers. The 49ers team, complete free fall right now. That is 3 straight losses. I don't know what happened to the 49ers of weeks 1 to 5, because 6, 7, and 8, this is a different team. I know there's been injuries, but you should be able to overcome that. And then we get to the Sunday night game, which just was awful to watch. It was the Bears against the Chargers. The Chargers get a 30-13 victory. Like I said, this was just an awful game to watch. If you've had other options at the time, you probably moved to those. That just the Bears being on primetime TV, on national TV, should be a crime to begin with until they're a better team. But obviously that's not going to happen. Them not being on national television. They'll be on national television plenty of times. I'm sure that they'll turn it around, but this team just isn't there right now and isn't worthy of the primetime spotlight. And then we get to Monday Night Football. The Lions controlled this game from start to finish. Probably should have had a few more touchdowns, but they get a 26-14 victory over the Raiders, a Raiders team that just looks terrible outside of Max Crosby. Max Crosby is a generational talent. I know I said yesterday that I hate that word. If you watch Top of the Perch, I hate the word generational talent because it's overused. Max Crosby is a generational talent. What he does on that field is sensational. I saw a lot of Lions fans saying, hey, listen, we drafted Aiden Hutchinson second overall, and he's a good player. But if you look at, or if you compare him and Max Crosby, Hutchinson has a long, long way to go. They are in two separate weight classes. That's how big of the difference is between the two. And I honestly agree with them. Max Crosby may be one of the greater, maybe even the greatest defensive player of this somewhat generation, I guess I would say, because it's not a full generation. I'll say of the 2020 so far, I think he's the best defensive player, even though he plays on an absolutely terrible team, and it's truly a shame that he plays on this bad of a team because Jimmy Garoppolo looks awful. Josh McDaniels' coaching looks awful. Devontae Adams is struggling because those two are awful. This Raiders team is just bad. So given that, that is going to be it for this episode of Pigskin Perspectives. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you just stumbled across it, hit like, hit subscribe, tell anybody you know about this channel or these videos. We will be back on Thursday night to preview the upcoming weekend. Like I said, we go fast here, so hopefully you tune in for that episode of Pigskin Perspectives, and we will see you then.